Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be taking a look at James Allen and his book, From Poverty to Power. And our source material is a full audiobook reading from the Audiobook Wealth YouTube channel.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, and I got to say, when I first saw this title, it really grabbed my attention. I mean, it's bold, right?
Yeah.
It kind of makes you think, like, is there some secret formula? You know, Allen claims to reveal the source of all success. And get this, he says it's within us. So this should be interesting.
Yeah, that's a great place to start. What I find so fascinating is how Allen really tackles this universal problem of suffering right from the beginning. He doesn't sugarcoat it at all. He kind of acknowledges that pain and misfortune are a part of life for everyone, and that we all try to escape it in various ways, you know, some through wealth or pleasure. Some people even turn to religion for solace.
It's almost like he's saying that all of those external solutions that we often chase are just temporary.
Exactly, and that's his key point. These external fixes don't really address the root cause. He believes that true suffering stems from our own thoughts and actions, not from the external circumstances themselves. It's like we're shutting ourselves in a dark room and then wondering why we can't see.
So he's saying that we're essentially creating our own misery.
In a way, yes. And he takes it a step further, too. He argues that our thoughts can actually shape our reality.
Whoa.
We attract what we focus on.
Okay.
So our mindset becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You know, have you ever noticed how, like, birds of a feather flock together, right?
Now that you mention it, yeah, I actually have noticed how my outlook can influence, you know, the kinds of people that I attract.
It's pretty powerful.
And the experiences I have.
Yeah, and Allen believes that by changing our inner world, through our beliefs and practices like meditation, we can actually create a happier external world. It's like we're not just victims of circumstance. We have the power to shape our reality.
That's an incredibly empowering thought. But I'm also wondering, does Allen acknowledge that life can be tough? I mean, does he address those times when we face real adversity?
Absolutely. He doesn't shy away from the reality of hardship at all. But here's the twist. He sees adversity as a crucial part of growth.
Okay.
It's through facing and understanding our challenges, not wallowing in self-pity, that we gain strength and wisdom.
Right.
You know, think of it like a muscle. It grows stronger through resistance training.
So no pity parties allowed.
Not if we want to grow and evolve.
Yeah.
You know, it's about taking responsibility for our lives and recognizing that we have the power to change our circumstances by changing ourselves.
Right.
Think about some of the negative thought patterns that might be holding you back.
Yeah.
What would it look like to eradicate those and create positive change?
Wow, that's definitely something to reflect on. It seems this inner transformation is really central to Allen's philosophy. And speaking of inner work, how does he address the concept of prosperity? Is it all about material wealth?
Not at all. Allen believes that true prosperity stems from virtue, not just money or possessions. He argues that external wealth without inner virtue is fleeting and ultimately unsatisfying.
Right.
He actually uses a biblical story as an example, the story of King David envying the wicked. You know, even someone as righteous as David struggled with this.
Yeah, it's so human to get caught up in those comparisons, you know?
It is.
Especially when it seems like others are prospering and we're struggling.
Right. And that's where this concept of the sanctuary of God comes in. It's about accessing a higher state of consciousness, where we understand that true prosperity is about enriching our souls.
I love it.
Not just our bank accounts.
So it's not about denying material wealth, but rather understanding that true abundance comes from within.
Precisely. And this brings us to another really crucial aspect of Allen's philosophy. Power of faith and self-control in overcoming negativity.
Okay.
He even compares faith to a protecting belt that can ward off darkness.
That's a very vivid image.
Yeah.
But what about those times when fear, worry, or doubt creep in?
Yeah.
How does Allen address that?
He has kind of a provocative perspective on this. Allen actually sees fear, worry, and doubt as forms of what he calls practical atheism. It's like they're denying the power of good, essentially. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how fear can, like, make you doubt the very possibility of good things happening?
That's a good point. When fear takes over, it can really feel like we're shutting ourselves off from any possibility of positive outcome.
Exactly. And Allen believes that we can overcome these negative forces by growing in knowledge and self-control. He uses this very striking analogy of a useless marsh being transformed into a fruitful garden.
Wow.
To kind of illustrate how self-mastery leads to a flourishing life.
It's like he's saying that by cultivating self-control, we're essentially clearing the weeds and creating fertile ground for our potential to blossom.
That's a great way to put it. Now, this focus on mastering our minds leads Allen to a really fascinating connection between our thoughts and our physical well-being. He actually believes that physical health is largely determined by our mental states.
Really? So he's suggesting that our thoughts and emotions can actually influence our physical health.
He does, and it's more than just a philosophical idea. There's actually growing scientific support for this connection these days. Allen goes so far as to say, he is dyspeptic because he is despairing. You know, it really challenges that old notion that health is purely a physical thing.
That's a powerful statement. It makes you wonder if some of our physical ailments might have roots in our mental and emotional states. If that's the case, what are some practical steps we can take to put our minds in order and create better health?
That's a great question. And it leads us to another key concept, the importance of single-minded purpose. Alan is a big advocate for having a clear and focused goal in life. He even cautions against boisterous and uncontrolled laughter, arguing that it can be a waste of energy.
Right, so no more laughing, just kidding. But I do get his point about being intentional with our energy. It's about channeling our focus towards what truly matters.
Exactly, and he believes that as we gain self-mastery, our soul powers will unfold.
Okay.
Leading to greater success and fulfillment in all areas of life.
No, I'm really curious. What are these soul powers he keeps mentioning? What does that even look like in practice?
It's a fascinating concept, and we'll definitely delve deeper into it, but think of it this way. As we cultivate self-mastery and align ourselves with higher principles, we tap into a deeper level of wisdom, intuition, and creativity. It's like we're accessing this hidden reservoir of potential within ourselves.
That's an exciting thought. It's like we all have these superpowers waiting to be activated.
And speaking of tapping into something greater, Alan believes that meditation is a powerful tool for connecting with this deeper well of potential. He even compares it to a mystic ladder that leads from error to truth.
So it's not just about emptying your mind.
Not at all. He emphasizes that meditation is about searching and uncompromising thought, a rigorous process of self-inquiry designed to reveal the truth.
That makes sense. It's about using our minds in a deliberate and focused way to gain clarity and understanding.
Exactly. And it's not just about thinking about anything. Alan highlights the importance of choosing an uplifting object for meditation, something that inspires and elevates the mind. He also emphasizes the practical benefits of this practice. Things like increased self-awareness, reduced negative emotions, greater clarity, and a profound sense of inner peace.
It sounds like meditation can be a real game changer. It's not just about relaxation, it's about transforming our minds and ultimately our lives.
And that transformation is at the heart of Alan's message. He wants us to understand that we have the power to overcome suffering and create a life of true happiness and fulfillment.
Right.
But it all starts with taking responsibility for our own minds and making the conscious choice to align ourselves with the power of truth and love.
This is already so thought-provoking. It seems like Alan is inviting us to question everything we think we know about success and happiness, and even our own potential.
He certainly is. And as we continue exploring his ideas, I think you'll find that his message is both challenging and incredibly empowering.
You mentioned soul powers earlier, and I'm really intrigued by that concept. What exactly did Alan mean by that? It sounds almost mystical.
It does have a mystical quality to it, but Alan really grounds it in practicality. He doesn't give a specific list or anything. But, based on what we've discussed so far, we can see that these soul powers are things like intuition, creativity, and the ability to kind of manifest our desires. These are the capacities that kind of emerge when we master our minds and align with that higher purpose.
So it's not like we suddenly develop telekinesis or something.
No, not quite. But think of it this way. We often limit ourselves with doubt, fear, scattered thinking. And as we cultivate self-mastery through the practices Alan suggests, we're removing those limitations. It's like we're clearing the static, so our inner wisdom can come through more clearly.
So it's less about gaining new powers and more about tapping into the potential that's already within us.
Precisely. And remember how Alan emphasizes the protecting power of faith. It's not just blind belief. It's about cultivating this unwavering belief in the power of good. Even when things are tough, that faith acts as a shield against negativity.
It's like that saying, what you focus on expands. If we dwell on fear and worry, it's no wonder we feel powerless. But if we choose to focus on faith and courage and love, we tap into a completely different energy.
Beautifully put. And this connects to another of Alan's really key ideas, the two masters. He says we can only serve one master at a time, either the master of self or the master of truth. It's a constant choice point, isn't it?
It really is.
In each moment, are we acting from ego, fear and desire, or are we choosing to act from love, wisdom, and truth?
It's like there's this internal tug-of-war going on all the time.
Exactly. And with each choice, we're shaping our reality. Are we reinforcing those patterns of ego and suffering? Or are we aligning ourselves with truth and creating a more peaceful and fulfilling life?
Right.
It's an ongoing process of self-discovery.
Okay, but how do we know which master we're serving? What are the signs?
Well, Alan provides some clues. The master of self relies on what he calls weapons of darkness, things like passion, pride, and self-will. It's all about control, domination, getting what I want. The master of truth uses what he calls instruments of light. Things like gentleness, patience, and humility. It's about understanding, connection, and the well-being on the whole.
It's almost like two different operating systems running within us. One is focused on separation and self-interest, while the other is oriented towards unity and the greater good.
That's a great way to put it. And Alan even describes the qualities of someone who's on the path of truth. He says, their feet are set on that fair path which leads to heavenly birth.
Heavenly birth. That sounds pretty profound. What exactly did he mean by that?
It's essentially a metaphor for spiritual awakening. It's about transcending our limited, ego-driven self and realizing our true nature, which Alan believes is divine. It's a process of becoming more and more aligned with truth and love, and as a result, experiencing greater peace, joy, and fulfillment.
So how do we get on that path? How do we actually deny ourselves daily, as Alan suggests, and choose the path of truth?
Well, it starts with awareness. We have to pay attention to our thoughts and motivations. Are we acting out of self-interest? Or are we considering the well-being of others? Are we driven by fear and scarcity? Or are we operating from a place of love and abundance?
It's about being honest with ourselves, right? Like looking in the mirror and seeing if our actions are actually reflecting the principles we say we value.
Exactly, and if we're not quite there yet, it's not about beating ourselves up. Remember, Alan sees challenges as opportunities for growth. We can use those moments when we fall short as opportunities to learn and course correct.
So how do we turn those challenging moments into actual growth? Where do we even begin?
Well, Alan stresses self-control and self-discipline. He says our minds are often like a useless marsh, full of scattered thoughts and impulses.
Yeah.
But we can drain that marsh. We can channel that energy into a well-cut channel and make it productive.
So instead of letting our energy just dissipate in all directions,
Yeah.
we're focusing it, creating a powerful flow towards something meaningful.
Exactly. It's like taking all that wasted energy from negative and unproductive thoughts and channeling it towards something constructive and life-affirming. And as we develop self-control, we naturally become more patient, more compassionate, more understanding.
We start to see things differently, not just ourselves, but the world around us.
Yeah,
It's like shifting from a scarcity mindset to one of abundance and interconnectedness.
that's a beautiful way to put it. And as we embody this new way of being, our actions naturally become more aligned with truth, love, and service. We start to see ourselves as part of something much bigger than ourselves, and our lives reflect that understanding.
It sounds like we move beyond those self-centered concerns that often drive us and realize that true fulfillment comes from contributing to the well-being of others.
That's the essence of it. And this brings us to Alan's vision of what he calls selfless love. A love that embraces the whole universe without clinging or attachment, free from judgment, condemnation, and the need to control.
That sounds radically different from the love we often see in the world, which can be possessive, conditional, and even destructive at times.
You're right, but Alan acknowledges that human loves, with all their imperfections and heartaches, are necessary steps towards realizing that divine love. He describes them as the crucible in which our hearts are purified.
So we need to experience those limitations and heartbreaks to appreciate the boundless and unconditional nature of divine love.
That's a profound insight. And this purification process often involves forgiveness. It's the willingness to let go of resentment, blame, and the need to be right. It's choosing to see the good in others, even when they've hurt us.
Forgiveness is such a powerful concept, but it can be really challenging. How do we cultivate it? Especially when we're holding on to pain and resentment.
Well, it starts with understanding that those negative emotions are only hurting us. They keep us trapped in the past, and they block us from experiencing the peace and freedom that come with forgiveness. Alan encourages us to see our own failings and the failings of others as opportunities for growth and compassion, not condemnation.
It's about recognizing that we're all human, right? We all make mistakes,
Yeah.
and we all have the potential to learn and grow.
Exactly. Approaching life with that understanding naturally makes us more forgiving, more compassionate, and willing to extend grace to ourselves and others.
It's like choosing understanding over judgment, empathy over blame, and love over resentment. What a beautiful way to live.
It is, and as we cultivate that spirit of forgiveness, we start experiencing the transformative power of selfless love. We see the world through the eyes of compassion, recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of every living being.
This is such an inspiring vision, a world of unity, interconnectedness, and unconditional love, where our actions flow from a deep desire to contribute to the well-being of all. But how do we bridge the gap between this vision and the reality of the world we live in, with all its conflicts and suffering? How do we actually get there?
That's the question, isn't it? And Alan suggests it begins with service, dedicating our lives to something bigger than ourselves, using our talents and resources to make a positive difference in the world.
So it's not just about inner transformation, but about taking that transformation outward, putting it into action in the real world.
Precisely. It doesn't mean we all have to become saints or renounce everything we own. It's about finding ways to integrate service into our daily lives, big or small. It's about shifting our focus from what's in it for me to how can I be of service.
Yeah, that shift in perspective is pretty powerful.
Yeah.
It's like going from that mindset of scarcity and self-interest to one of abundance and generosity.
It is. And Alan really believed that that shift is so important for creating a more peaceful and just world. He argued that true power doesn't come from force or dominance. It comes from aligning ourselves with those higher principles that we've been talking about,
Right.
and using our influence to uplift and empower others.
So it's not about climbing over others to get to the top, but it's about working together, recognizing that we're all in this together. And true success comes from working collaboratively for the benefit of all.
Exactly. He uses the example of Jesus sacrificing his life for humanity as the ultimate model of selfless love and service.
Yeah.
It's a powerful reminder that true greatness lies not in personal gain, but in dedicating ourselves to something larger than ourselves.
It really challenges our conventional ideas of success, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like he's saying that true fulfillment comes from contributing to the well-being of the whole, not just focusing on our own individual needs and desires.
It definitely challenges that me-first mentality that's so prevalent in our culture, but Alan's perspective offers a much more meaningful and ultimately fulfilling way to live.
It all circles back to that core idea that inner transformation leads to outward change. If we want to see more love and peace in the world, we have to cultivate those qualities within ourselves first. It's like Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world.
And Alan gives us that practical roadmap for that inner transformation. He emphasizes self-discipline, meditation, aligning ourselves with those higher principles, and viewing our challenges as opportunities for growth.
Right.
It's not always easy, but it's a path worth taking.
Speaking of challenges, Alan seems to connect this idea of inner power with finding a sense of perfect peace. Like he's saying that even amidst all the chaos of the world around us, we can still access this deep inner peace by aligning ourselves with that higher power.
It's not about withdrawing from the world or ignoring its problems. It's about finding that unshakable grounding in truth. That allows us to move through life with clarity, purpose, and compassion no matter what's happening around us.
Yeah, he uses the image of a righteous man standing firm in his principles, completely unfazed by the storms of negativity swirling around him. I love that image.
It's powerful.
It's such a powerful reminder that when we're grounded in truth, nothing can truly shake us.
Absolutely. And that reminds me of Alan's emphasis on self-control. He says that those who are ruled by their passions and impulses are like helpless straws upon the ocean of life.
Whoa.
You know, they're tossed around by every wave and wind. But those who cultivate self-mastery become like mighty ships, capable of navigating even the roughest seas.
So it's not about suppressing our emotions or denying our human experience. It's about learning to ride those waves without being completely swept away by them.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between our inner world and the outer world.
Right.
Between our personal desires and the needs of the collective. And that balance, according to Alan, is the key to unlocking our true potential and creating a more peaceful and harmonious world.
This whole conversation has been so inspiring. It's like Alan is offering us a path forward, a way to navigate these turbulent times with grace, wisdom, and compassion.
He certainly is. And ultimately, it comes down to that fundamental choice. Are we going to serve the master of self, driven by our fears, desires, and attachments? Or are we going to choose the master of truth, guided by love, wisdom, and a deep commitment to service?
It's a choice we face every single day, in every thought, word, and action. And those choices, as Alan reminds us, have the power to shape not only our own lives, but the world around us.
So what kind of world do you want to create? What legacy do you want to leave behind? These are questions worth pondering.
They are indeed. And they're questions that James Allen's lived, From Poverty to Power, can help us answer. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it's inspired you to cultivate your own inner power, to choose the path of truth, and to contribute to the creation of a more peaceful and loving world.